All right, so I want to talk a bit about what's happening in Syria, a bit about Tulsi Gabbard as well. She's in this video. Something very interesting happened this week. Basically, the Syrian army made a huge advance, and this is an enormous win for the Syrian government. They recaptured a major highway. The way this happened is the Syrian army, they captured a crucial town, Saraqib, which is on the M5 highway. Now, to explain this to you, think of the M5 highway in Syria as the I-95 in the US, okay? That's how important it is because it links Damascus, the capital, to Aleppo. And Aleppo is the economic center of Syria. It's the industrial center. It has the largest population. It's the biggest city, even though it's not the capital. So it's completely, absolutely crucial for the entire country. So just like imagine the I-95 in America, which links Washington, D.C. to New York, which is also the economic financial center of the country. Think of it that way. It's the same thing now in Syria. So the government, since 2012, I think, since 2012, they didn't have this. You had rebels, you had armed militias, basically controlling key towns in the middle of this highway. Now that's over. And the Syrian army has captured that, and now they have complete control and access from Damascus to Aleppo on the M5 highway. So this is enormous development. I mean, this is one of the most important things that's happened in this war so far. I can't stress enough how important this is. Moreover, they also have resumed flights from the international airport in Syria to Halab, to Aleppo. And they landed a plane there full of journalists earlier to kind of show off that, yeah, we're back in control now. We have control of the country and of the cities, etc. So in Syria, you have several provinces, Damascus on its own, you have Hasakeh, you have Homs, etc. Aleppo is also an enormous province in Syria. And, you had a huge bloodbath in Aleppo for years and years. I mean, the fighting there is probably one of the most intense in the entire war. I mean, the city is leveled. It's really a disaster and a shame, not just from a humanitarian point of view, but also a historical point of view. You have so many important historical sites there. One of the oldest bazaars, one of the oldest souks in the world, probably the oldest, actually. It was destroyed by fire. I mean, it's so terrible. And the Umayyad Mosque also, so much destruction. It's truly horrible. And so now basically, not just the city of Aleppo, but the province is back under control of the Syrian government. Now, on top of that, so they've made these key advances, right? They've recaptured the M5 highway. They've linked the capital to the economic center, Damascus to Aleppo. They've captured the province of Aleppo. And on top of that, they're also making a push. They're making an advance on Idlib. Okay, so Idlib is another city. It's another province. You have 14, right? So Damascus, Homs, Aleppo, etc. Idlib is one of them. And what the Syrian government did throughout this war, in case you don't know this, what they did is they took all the terrorists, they took all the armed militias, all the rebels, and put them in Idlib. So whenever they'd capture a town, they'd capture a district, they'd capture something, instead of killing all of the terrorists that surrendered or didn't surrender, they made a kind of ceasefire deal, right? A kind of negotiation. They're like, okay, you put down your arms, you get into these green buses, and we're going to drive you to Idlib, and you stay there. And that's what they did throughout these years. So what they've done essentially is they've put all the terrorists, about 20,000 of them. I mean, this is no joke right here. This is insane. You have about 20,000 of them right now in Idlib. Okay. And I mean, this is insane. It's like something out of a action movie, right? So what's happening now is the Syrian government is pushing on Idlib. This is the last stronghold to end the war. Assad, the president, he was giving a speech this week after they captured the M5 and they captured Aleppo. He's saying that this is a sign of victory to come. Like, it's not done yet, it's not over yet, but victory is coming.
إلا أننا نعي تماما أن هذا التحرير لا يعني نهاية الحرب ولا يعني سقوط المخططات ولا زوال الإرهاب ولا يعني استسلام الأعداء، لكنه يعني بكل تأكيد تمريغ أنوفهم بالتراب كمقدمة للهزيمة الكاملة عاجلا أو آجلا.
I would agree from a strategic point of view. I mean, the war in Syria is going to be over, not soon, I would say, not like something in 2 months, no. But I would say anywhere from a year to 2 years, it's over. I think so. I think that Idlib is going to fall back into the control of the Syrian government, and it's going to be over. So, and then of course it's a complicated, man, because you still have American troops controlling the oil, right? They're all the way in Dore, they're in eastern Syria controlling the oil fields. I mean, it's a mess. It's a mess. But anyway, going back to Idlib, what's happening though, it's so complicated, man, because you have Turkish-backed militias in northern Syria, in Idlib. And if you've watched the Grayzone before, I mean, they do amazing journalism. They talked about how these Turkish-backed militias were committing genocide. They're killing Kurds. They're killing Christians. I mean, just killing people because of their ethnicity. And Syria is very, very diverse. I mean, you have so many ethnicities, right? Armenians, Christians, Kurds, Shia, Sunni, everything. So it's really bad what they've been doing there, these Turkish-backed militias. And it's quite astounding because the Turkish government also has its own army in northern Syria. So they got Turkish-backed militias and the Turkish army inside Idlib. And Erdogan is saying that if the government doesn't leave Idlib, he's going to launch an offensive at the end of the month. I mean, this is insane. Idlib is a Syrian town. This is Syria. And he's telling the Syrian government to get out of its own city. I mean, this is madness. This guy thinks that he's some Ottoman emperor or sultan or something. I mean, it's really crazy. He's basically invaded northern Syria and he's telling the Syrian government to get out of its own cities. This is madness. I really don't know who he thinks he is. So you have negotiations going on between Russia, which is backing Syria, and the Turkish government. They're trying to appease each other, negotiate some kind of ceasefire, but it's not happening, you know? And so the Syrian government doesn't care. They're just going on with this offensive and trying to basically kill all the remaining terrorists and the rebels that they shipped off in these buses to Idlib. Okay, so this is basically the final stand. This is the final stand of the war. And it's really bad also from a humanitarian point of view. I mean, you have so many people that have basically been displaced in these last weeks that are fleeing Idlib because it's already turning into an enormous conflict. I think you have something like 500,000 children alone. Just that number is kids, right? It's insane. So this is really the final stand of the conflict. And it's really interesting what's going to happen. You know, I can't imagine that the Turkish government would start a war with the Syrian army. I mean, this is just madness. Like, you're not even in your own country. Like, what are you doing there? What legitimacy do you have to be in Syria? This is not your goddamn country. This is insane. I mean, could you imagine Mexico invading Texas and being like, oh, if the American army comes to Texas, we're going to attack you? What? That's not even your country. I mean, it was once upon a time, but do you understand the question of legitimacy here? This is truly astounding. You have so many countries that are either paying for terrorists, paying for rebels, or having their own troops directly come into Syria, like Turkey, like France, like the UK, like the US, and calling the shots like they're some kind of neo-colonial occupiers, basically telling the Syrian people, telling the Syrian government, imposing their own rule, telling them what to do. This is truly some dystopian crap. I mean, it really astounds me, and it's insane. Like, they have no legitimacy to be there in the first place. And so I want to talk also about Tulsi Gabbard because I actually saw a video on Twitter. Someone tried to do a gotcha with her. Okay, so a Somalian woman, she was basically asking Tulsi Gabbard about Assad. Okay, so she says in her caption, "My country was ruined by a war. Today I asked Tulsi Gabbard if she believed that Assad is a war criminal. Her response was that the International Criminal Court has a system in place to determine that. She refused to call him a war criminal."
Do you believe that the International Criminal Court has a system in place to determine that? My interest is in peace. My interest is in preventing needlessly the loss of lives and seeing how best we in the United States can...
Okay, so, I mean, once again, as usual, for the 100th, gazillionth, billionth time, Tulsi Gabbard is asked about Assad. Do you support Assad? Do you think Assad is a war criminal? Why wouldn't you condemn Assad? I mean, she's already done that 1,000,000 times. I can't even count the number of times she's been asked this stupid question by a moderator or a journalist or whatever. It's so tiring. I can't believe that she has the patience to answer these things calmly. I mean, if I were in her place, I would lose my okay? She has unbelievable patience. So I retweeted this video with my own comment. This is what I said. In Syria, we have a saying, I against my brothers, I and my brothers against my cousins, I and my brothers and my cousins against the world. You'll find that most Syrians are in fact not okay with foreign powers coming in trying to overthrow their government. Tulsi's answer is fine. Okay, so this saying in Arabic, it's a Bedouin saying, "Ana wa akhi ala ibn ammi, ana wa ibn ammi ala gharib." Okay, so me and my brothers against my cousins, me and my cousins against the world. Okay, so it means that, even if you have internal fighting, even if you have disagreements, if a foreigner, a stranger comes in, then we're going to get together and fight that together, right? So this whole notion that you have people from the outside that are not Syrian, that are illegally occupying the country, that are coming in and telling people what to do and imposing their own foreign policy on another people is madness. Even if you don't like Assad, you can't accept that a foreign country is coming in and installing their own leader or overthrowing your own government. I mean, this is madness, right? You can still disagree with your government. You can still hate your government while also refuting foreign intervention. I'm sure many of you don't like Trump, but you wouldn't like it if China or Russia invaded America and imposed their own leader, right? You'd hate that even more. So this whole notion that you have these Western powers coming in Syria trying to overthrow the government, whether you like them or not, is madness. It's illegal. It's complete lunacy, and it's a neo-colonial imperialist agenda. So Tulsi Gabbard, I mean, she met with Assad once, and they're going to hold that against her till the end of time, man. They're never going to let it go because they are so dumb. And everyone's met Assad. There's pictures of Nancy Pelosi meeting with Assad. Tony Blair, the Queen of England, met with Assad. She hosted him at Buckingham Palace. They used to like this guy just up until 2011 when the Arab Spring started, and then suddenly, he doesn't fit our agenda. This is so ridiculous. I wish they'd asked Nancy Pelosi why she met with Assad as many times as they asked Tulsi Gabbard. That's really just stupid. But anyway, this isn't about Assad, right? This is a question of you are a sovereign nation and you have foreign powers coming in trying to overthrow your government. That's just messed up. This is Cold War CIA agenda, okay? I have no words, man. So anyway, what's happening now in Syria? The Syrian army is making enormous advances, and most of the country is already back to normal. I mean, if you watch Drew Binsky, this is the guy who's traveling every single country on earth. He has an amazing YouTube channel. He was just in Syria, in Damascus and Aleppo a few months ago, back in November or December. Man, amazing, beautiful videos. Please go watch them because he shows you Syrian culture, Syrian food. It's just so heartwarming. I really miss that. And I loved his videos so much. So, the country is returning back to normal, thank God, but it's not over yet. It's not over yet. You still have enormous issues. You have the Americans occupying the oil fields in Dore in eastern Syria. And as I've mentioned before, the oil fields, man, this is an enormous part of government revenue. Something about like a quarter of the government's revenue comes from oil. And then also you have the Hasaka region, which is now being occupied by the Kurds. They basically created an autonomous region there, but they're going to strike some sort of deal with the Syrian government. I mean, it's definitely going to come back under Syrian rule. I don't think that it's going to remain like that. And also you have in northern Syria, in the western part, in Idlib, you have this whole issue with Turkey backing militias. The whole notion that Turkey is backing rebels to overthrow the Syrian government is madness, and also telling the Syrian government to retreat from its own cities. I mean, what the hell is going on here? On whose authority are you doing that? With what legitimacy are you even in Syria? It's crazy. It's like some Ottoman imperialist madness from like 2 centuries ago. So there's that also. You have this whole question of Idlib and all the terrorists that are holed up there. I mean, it's really a mess. You got CIA-backed rebels. You got Turkish-backed rebels. You have arms flowing in from the United States to these rebels in Idlib. American weapons being found. I mean, it's really just Cold War nonsense, The CIA backing militias trying to overthrow a government in another country, as usual. We've seen this so many times in Latin America. We've seen this in the Middle East. We've seen this in Africa. We've seen this in Southeast Asia. I mean, it never stops. It just doesn't stop, man. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a quick update on what's happening in the situation in Syria. I hope this was informative for you guys, and I can guarantee you 100% we get demonetized. So thank you to everybody who's supporting the channel. I love you guys, and if you can drop a few bucks on Patreon or PayPal, the links are in the description. That'll be really, really appreciated. Thank you so much, guys.